I've been told by everybody up on this roof that they're all off the roof. I am on the roof of exposure 4. Got fire through the roof of the fire building in the entire rear section.
Now remember, given the payday, has he been accounted for? Kate.
610B. That was the Mayday. 610B.
I'm here. We got a fire. 1.5-story, single-family dwelling. Fire shown from the second floor. Give me a second alarm on this.
Coming up to the top floor. I got people hanging out the top floor windows with a baby.
Commercial building. A lot of fire, a lot of smoke. Go ahead and strike a third alarm on my orders on this.
Got people on the front fire escape here with windows vented below them. We need somebody up there.
Yeah, let them know we got a job. I'm pulling up now. Second alarm, I got a 1-story single-family frame. Heavy fire showing from the attic.
So we're using all hands. We got one line stretch, fire on the 4th floor. Second line being stretched. Primary searches are underway.
Hey, welcome to Old School. I'm Chief Rick Lasky, along with my good buddy Chief John Salka. And buddy, as promised, a lot of people asked to make sure that we follow up on what we say we're going to do. Our last episode, we talked about search and rescue, and golly, we always try to keep these between 25, 24, and 34, 35 minutes long. But there's so much to talk about when it comes to search and rescue. I know we want to talk about, the techniques and how to stay oriented while you're doing a search. One of the things, John, you've heard me say, I guess if I could lead in with this part of it, you've heard me say this in class a bunch of times. God gave everybody out there, everybody outside all the firehouses, 5 things to do their jobs, to do their profession: the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, and everybody else. And the 5 senses, and we always ask people, right, how much sight, how much vision do you have in a burning building? And that's usually crappy or nothing. The next one would be, what do you have touch-wise? Well, you always say with the big bozo gloves, that's limited. Nothing taste-wise, nothing smell-wise. And hearing with regulators and with hoods, that's probably the best. It's still limited. So I always tell people in class, you've heard me say it, that, so you're asking me, Chief Salka, to crawl into that burning building, excuse me, a building that's under demolition. Everything put in that building to hold it up is leaving via the smoke and flames, and gravity is going to win. You're asking me to crawl in there with none of the use of any of the 5 senses to search for the seat of the fire, locate the seat of fire, and search and locate any possible lost, distressed, or missing occupants. And I always tell people, tell me, if you and I showed up at a construction site like that, they sent us home with a CNI dog and a white cane, but we're crawling into burning buildings with little or no use of the senses. So we always tell people, oh my God, if you don't think training in the basics, especially with search, is important, you're missing out on something very, very serious, right?
Oh, absolutely. And what I think a lot of folks don't realize is, obviously there's a lot of basics. Obviously there's a lot of standards on search, crawling and carrying a tool and things of that nature. But I think there's a lot more to search than a lot of people realize. And I think if you really start paying attention to it and doing a little bit more exploration and research on different types of classes that are available, which is some of the things that we did when we did the Get Out of Live program, I think it expands the horizon on search. And I think there's a lot more to know about search than there was simply just, 1-man search, 2-man search, one in the room, one wait outside the door. We talked about a few of those things in one of our previous episodes. So I think there's a lot to it. And I think that the room orientation, staying oriented, or room orientation, which was one of the 4 classes that we used to teach in the Get Out of Live program, I think that's a really interesting one. And everybody who ever took that class, anybody who took Get Out of Live always said, wow, that room orientation, that was really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
New stuff there.
Oh, yeah. They would. How many times, John, and I saw it, and I'm talking experienced firefighters and officers would get, and it wasn't like it wasn't like a torture chamber. Like some guys come back and they create these props, they frustrate their people. There's no confidence building with those. That should be like the end result drill you do after people have been practicing. But I watch guys, John, in your class, guys with 20, 25 years come out like, they were pissed off. Like, I want to go through it again. And we're going, well, we got to rotate the next drill, but I want to go through it again because I messed up or I didn't do this or whatever. And they wanted to go back. And it wasn't they did a bad job. They just, again, realized just how easy it is to get screwed up, how easy it is to get turned around, when you can't see. And it's.
And let me add to that, not only how easy it is to get get screwed up or turned around or lost, but how easy it is once you're taught and trained of how not to. You see, that was the point that people were realizing, wow, you know what? I got turned around, but once I went through this class and started listening to the instructor and paying attention and answering the questions, because as you know, when we did that class, and I guess we could probably talk about that during this program, it was a one-on-one class. Each person that went through that room orientation drill had an instructor with them, one instructor with them, throwing questions at them occasionally, asking them other questions a moment or two later, having them point to the door that they came in through the blackness of the room. And most of the time they performed well. So another fact you just mentioned, it wasn't some horror show. It wasn't some barn full of machinery and unknown stuff. It was every single search that people did in the room orientation drill was in ordinary size rooms furnished with ordinary residential furniture. Nothing was crazy. There was no ridiculous stuff going on. So I said, you got to prepare people to search ordinary rooms with ordinary furniture by doing just that. You can't give them ridiculous challenges through 5,000 plastic balls in a room and stuff like that.
Well, it's like, and for our listeners, don't confuse this with what our good friend Jimmy Crawford does in his RIT combat drills, where he challenges the RIT team to climb through a bunch of crap to get the firefighters.
And that's different. That's a different challenge.
Exactly. Quite often.
He's right on target. That's probably some of the best RIT training you'll ever get.
Yeah. And part of that is, quite often, when we're dealing with that, when a RIT team deploys, we've had a collapse, we had something happen or whatever, so on and so forth when it comes to that. But John, one of the things that I've talked about, I've told you this many times before, when we used to do the smoke divers classes in Illinois, the Illinois Fire Service Institute, one of the greatest fire schools in the country, one of the oldest, if not the oldest. We used to do a simple drill, and you could do this, folks. You could do this in your firehouse if you have a burn building, if you have an old house you're working at, whatever. Nothing fancy, John. All we used to do was make sure, obviously, there was a door. There has to be a door, and maybe a window, and then along the right, let's just call it the right-hand wall as you go in. Once you got in there 10, 15 feet, there'd be a baby doll, like one of the old CPR mannequins, something with some weight to it. Then there was a hydrant wrench, a gated Y, a cinder block, and a bowling pin from a bowling alley. And we would tell the two firefighters, okay, you're going to go in and you're going to be a primary search, which you said before is down and dirty and fast and everything else. You're going to do a right-hand search. When I call you, tell you to come out, that's when it becomes a left-hand search. That we'll talk about that in a little bit. But anything you crawl past or on, which is you do this quickly. Stop, identify what you have. And people used to say, but a bowling pin, and the whole point of the drill, remember, was to get you to stop and recognize something that's in your hand as you're crawling with your gloves on. You can't see. You're on your hands and knees. There's smoke. It may be hot. There might be fire, whatever. And to start to feel different things, to be able to put the room together. I've told people before, during some of our Mayday drills, John, that when they get lost, stop, take a breath, and realize this: you didn't crawl. They didn't drop you into a cube. There's walls with doors and windows somewhere. Put yourself together, find a wall, do what you got to do. But just those drills, for starters, John, with staying oriented. Forcing people to feel, stop, whatever it is. I'm like, okay, all right, I know that's a hydrant. And you're thinking. Tom Freeman used to say, this goes against, I guess, a lot of standards. Chief Tom Freeman used to say, chew gum. If you want to conserve your air, you chew gum, because if you take a few chews and you go, you're helping your breathing a little bit. And I tried it once, and shit, it works. But getting in there, and something as simple, right, is just putting some things in there for them to find. And then if you really want to see,
and that whole topic, I don't want to cut you off, because I don't want you to get too far away from searching for the garbage can cover and the football and the roll of toilet paper, right? I mean, people used to ask, why these inanimate objects? And the whole point was for you to mentally picture yourself in that room when you find each of these objects. It wasn't like you found them all next to each other in a row. And New York State used to have a mass confidence course as well. Different name, same exact drill. And you'd go in, and when you came out, you'd have to actually sit down, pull your face piece off, and sit down with a pen and a piece of paper and quickly draw the room, what shape you thought it was, and where you saw the football, where you saw the garbage can cover, where you found the cinder block. And what that did was you're inside the smoke, you're inside zero visibility, and you're finding these objects. Then when you come out, You're actually trying to place them on a piece of paper where you were. And most of the time, guys and gals got it right. Most of the time, folks got it right. They realized that they found the garbage can cover in a football. Then they hit a corner. Then they made a left, and then they went down a little bit, and they found a cinder block. And they actually had it drawn on the piece of paper correctly. And whether you're feeling a couch and a TV and a nightstand or a bed, or whether you're feeling these other objects, these inanimate objects, it got you used to going through and using your hands and finding stuff and acknowledging what it was and figuring out where it was in relation to where you just passed and where you were going to. And that's a major concept in staying oriented.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I left that part out about when they got out of the drill, there was a dry erase board or a chalkboard, like you said, and they had to trace, because I think that forces you to put it together. Because I think if you don't do that, you've left the cap off the end of the bottle. You know what I'm saying? It's like, all right, I recognize where these things at, but now come and show me where you found them. And then you and your partner, you go, wait a minute, John, no. The baby was before the hydrant. No, it was that. And now all of a sudden you're going, and these are the guys that come back to you and go, Chief Salka, I want to go back through it again. You know,
right.
But I think so. First and foremost is being able to stay oriented, to be able to crawl around on your hands and knees. We'll do thermal imagers on a whole nother day, because that's a whole nother podcast for us. But being able to communicate with your partner, talk. But now I always ask you in class, because you taught this. You know, there's just about as many theories for different people on staying oriented in a burning building as there is as to which coupling, the different things for bumps and all these different things for how coupling's out of a building. John, I always ask you in class, for obviously reasons, talk about what you teach when you teach, and I love that drill. I love that class. Teaching officer fires how to stick about counting corners and staying oriented in that bedroom, in that room.
Couple of different skills. You know, in our version of orientation, right? 5-ground orientation, a couple of different skills. One of the skills was, we call it mapping the room. So you're going in there, and what we want you to do is, while you're searching, now you're still searching for victims, you're still, you know, crawling around and swinging your tool and using your hands, but we also want you to pay attention to everything that you encounter. So if you go to a house fire, and you go up the stairs to a second floor for a report of a child trapped on the second floor. No mention of a bedroom or a hallway or where they are, but obviously you're going to the second floor of a house. What are you going to find? You're going to find a bathroom and probably some bedrooms. So you get to the second floor of this house, down the hallway you go, your lieutenant says, Bill, into the right room, search that room. Now you go in that room. What can you expect to find? Right off the bat, you should expect to find furniture, bedroom furniture, because you're on the second floor of a private. So mapping the room is going in, doing your left turn or your right turn. Some people do it based on how the door swings, whatever you choose. You go in, you stay to your right, you start feeling the wall, boom, the first thing you hit could be a nightstand. It could be a little nightstand next to a bed. Boom, then you bang into a mattress. You feel a mattress. And I always tell people, get 2 hands on everything. I know you're carrying a tool. You can momentarily put a tool down. You can momentarily put the tool on top of the mattress and feel the mattress. Make sure it's a big bed.
And one quick thing, like you said about the tool, I want to interrupt just for a second, is what we used to teach you, John, if you've got a hook, a Halligan, or whatever, an axe, you know, so in your flurry, you don't lose it. If you're going to feel, it's very easy to just lay it down and put your knee on it, kind of kneel on it like you would your glove, and feel around. Because I love that, searching with 2, like you said, keep going, about 2 hands.
And 2 hands is what's going to allow you to make the difference between, let's say, a chair and a couch. They're both going to feel the same. They're both going to have the same texture. But suddenly when you put 2 hands on it, you realize, wow, I got my arms fully stretched out. This is 6 feet. This isn't a chair. This is a couch or a love seat, right? Back to the tool. You should be able to put your tool down. You know, it drives me crazy when I see instructors kicking a guy's tool away when he lets go of his tool for a moment. Don't ever let go of your tool. It could be kicked away by a nearby instructor. No, it can't be. There's no instructors in a fire. If you put your tool down, it's going to be right where you left it. You're not on a ship. It's not listing. It's not going to slide to the left or the right, you know. So obviously we don't want to put a tool down and move across the room away from it. But you can momentarily let go of a tool to feel a big piece of furniture, then grab your tool again and move on. So mapping the room is saying, okay, I found a nightstand. I found a bed. Oh, hit the corner of the room. I'm making a left. Oh, now I found a dresser drawer. And you can anticipate to some degree too, because you're in a bedroom in a house. So you can start to anticipate that stuff. So mapping the room is saying nightstand, bed, corner, dresser drawer, desk, corner, I found the first window. And now you know. So not only are you mapping the room with the furniture, you should be able to retrace your steps very quickly and say what? Desk, bed, nightstand. What's the next thing you hit? The door. You should know your way out by those landmarks, right? Additionally, I did mention the corner. You should never miss a corner. You should always physically feel the corner of the room, because when you count the corners, what are you doing? That's your odometer. That's measuring how far you're going. So you hit one corner, you hit two corners. After you hit two corners, as you're going down that wall, somewhere along the way, you're going to pass the halfway mark. You're actually on the way out of the room now. You hit the third corner, you're absolutely on the way out of the room. You should never turn around after hitting the third corner. You're in a bedroom. Now I'm not saying in a real estate office or in a car repair place, you might have to retrace your steps back even after hitting the third corner, because you don't know what's ahead of you. But in a residential building, in a bedroom on the second floor of a house, it's just a bedroom. After you hit the third corner, all you have to do is hit one more corner. You're going to come back to the doorway that you came in. So those are the things. Those are the concepts you have to remember. So one is mapping the room, using two hands. The other one is counting your corners. You got to count your corners. And if you keep track of counting your corners, generally you're going to find 4 corners in every room. It's going to work out very well for you. And if you put those couple of things, those 2-3 ideas together of using two hands, mapping the room, and counting the corners, and if you practice that time and time again in a residential scenario, residential furniture, residential rooms, you're going to be very able to do a aggressive, rapid interior search without being on a hose line, and make very rapid progress. And that'll make a good search very quickly, but keep yourself orientated so you don't become a victim.
Well, and I, this is a technique that we used and we still use. If you during training, if you want to see how good you did when you searched in let's just call it your training tower, whatever. If you can, if it's not like hopefully if you're crawling around, you can get it all dirty and stuff like that. We used to do this, John, and still do. Take a dry chem extinguisher, an extra one, not one obviously in a rig, and walk into the room they're going to search with the concrete floor, let's say, or we can even do it in the kitchen in an acquired structure, or whatever, and just take it and just pop it once. Just pop it, let the dry chem poof, and then settle on the floor. That's how my next door neighbor found out he had a poisonous snake, a rattlesnake in his house. This colonel from he knew he had a snake skin. He shot some stuff on the floor, and then he could see where the snake was crawling. Same thing. You want to see if your students or the guys and gals that are training actually swept their arms out into the middle of the room. It's one thing. Not everybody is following along walls and near the dresser. Some people are laying right there in the middle of the carpeting or the floor, or whatever. So if you want to see how good you're doing, give it a shot, and just not cake it. Give it a shot. Just dust the floor, and then you go in afterwards and you look. You go, okay, you guys did great here, but look, I don't see any marks or anything. This whole area over here, there could have been someone laying right here. And it kind of challenges them, like you said, to be able to, all right, now let's talk about searching away from the wall, using your tool, sliding your tool against the wall, and reaching out and again, always having a tool with you, but reaching away from, being able to work away from the wall where you don't lose the wall and sweep out into a room. Now you've got proof positive, whether you did good or not. You come in and there was nothing better for, God, they'd be beaming. They come in, they go, look at this. You find me a place here where someone could have been laying, where you didn't see my hand, my glove swoop or whatever like that, and so on and so forth. The other thing, John, I think a lot of people don't realize the difference between a big, chunky pile of clothes on the floor and a body. I think people don't realize, firefighters don't realize that you're almost surprised that what you just touched, or, back to the two hands thing. If it's your left hand and you're bumping and doing things, you reach out with your tool, you've got to know that, if I'm using I'll just say it, like you see a blind person use their cane, same with you, with your hands or your tools. If you're using a tool, you've got to know what you're feeling, you're just not banging around this tool. I know people that have missed, and their partner says, hey, and he goes, so I thought that was a pile of clothes, or I thought that was this, and didn't realize that was an adult laying there. And,
right. And we've taught guys, and I know you have, and I've heard it's been taught to me as well. You don't swing a Halligan or whatever tool you happen to have. If you have an axe, obviously, what are you doing? You're holding the head of the axe, and you're using the light hand. And when you touch something, when you encounter something, you stop. Now you move out there and you put your hand on that object. You don't determine what it is by the end of an axe handle. You can't really figure that out. There's no sense on the end of that handle. You're just hitting an object. even if it pushes a little bit, that could be clothing, that could be a cushion, or it could be a person. That's why you just use the tool really to locate your stuff around you, your limits, your wall, your furniture, and then you go out and you feel it. If it's going bang, 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 obviously it's not a person. It's the leg of a chair, a leg of a table, you know?
Well, exactly. And then that's also, we've got a few minutes here left with this one, but is knowing your tools. Like you said, I know you used to do it in your drills, and we used to do it when we used to do our truck classes. You see a lot of younger firefighters, and I'm younger, inexperienced, good guys and gals, but they're learning like we all did. And they're searching, they're holding on to the axe handle with the head of the axe out in front of them. First of all, they get heavy after a while. And, instead of, like you said, holding it with your hand kind of nudged up against the bottom, the base of the head of the axe itself, and using that, like I said, like that blind person feeling, and you feel something, okay, I felt something, and you push out there. It's the same thing, John, is searching with a Halligan. Watching firefighters crawl around, holding on to the Halligan, without using it, like we talked about, with the horn and the adze end down, so it's off the ground, so you're not squishing your knuckles. I see some guys, they're crawling around with this tool, and they're trying to pinch it with their fingers, or they're crawling with it, and they're instead of going, look, I've got the fork end down here, I've got the horn and the adze end out in front of me, I've got that stuck on the floor, my hands above it, and that's what we talked about. Especially some of the good, like from Firehooks, the Pro, the Super Pro, the Pro, or the original Halligan, but a good Halligan. This was a Tommy Trevino thing, was in the center, when you find that balance point on that Halligan, a lot of people, you've seen it where they wrap it. We do the whole, the clothesline, wrap it like a barbershop pole, do the plastic hockey tape, then go over the friction tape. So now you got a grip on there too. But in the middle of that tool, in the middle of that Halligan, again, if you take your fingers, some of them, the bevels actually stop in the middle at the balancing point. You take that plastic electro tape and you keep going around and around and around. You make like a little ball there, not a tennis ball, but like a little balls that can fit into the center of the palm of your hand.
Smaller than a golf ball. Yeah,
exactly. So when you're in the smoke, if you've got that sticking in the palm of your glove in your hand, you've got the center of it. So I could flip the fork in this way. I had the adze and the horn in this end. And as I'm crawling, my knuckles are off the ground. Same thing with searching with maybe a 6-foot all-purpose hook like we do sometimes, which I love that tool. Like you said, John, knowing your tools, knowing how to search with them, being able to search away from your partner, away from the wall, to be able to sweep out, to not lose contact with the wall. Like you said, once in a while I got to lay my tool down. We used to just teach guys. In fact, the Marines taught my son this as a corpsman, an FMF corpsman, with his rifle. If you can, you set it down, kneel on it. Just because where it's at, you kind of know where it's at the whole time. It's kind of like if I set my axe down and pull, I put my foot on it so I don't lose it in the rub, the sheetrock and stuff.
And the other thing is, when you're carrying two tools, there's absolutely no reason to carry two tools into a bedroom to search. If you have an axe and a Halligan, you've got a set of irons, I would leave the axe at the front door or leave the iron at the front door. A lot of people like to leave the Halligan at the front door and take the axe because the axe is easy to swing around, right? You're probably not going to get into a forcible entry situation inside a bedroom on the second floor of a house. Same thing like in the FDNY, the can man, the other part of the forcible entry team, carries a 6-foot hook, right? And a can. A lot of times you leave the 6-foot hook at the door, through the doorway. Now somebody passing by in the hallway sees a handle sticking out. They know there's a team of firefighters in there. Number two, it prevents the door from closing and latching if somebody happens to bang into it, right? And then you can search the rest of the room. So there's a lot of options. There's no one way to do it, but you shouldn't just be carrying everything that you went in the building with through the room. You don't necessarily have to do that.
Well, exactly. And and if you hear the phone right now, folks, that's probably the IRS calling me, telling me I have to give them like all my account information because I owe money. I'm kidding. It's a scammer. Either that or it's somebody telling me that I just won $3 million over in Europe somewhere. But well, hey, you know what? We're actually at the end of this one. John, one of the questions that one of our other listeners posed to us that shot me on Twitter or Facebook, I forget which one it was. They wanted for us to talk a little bit about vent enter and search as well and some of those techniques. You want to do a part 3? You want to do our next show? We'll do a part 3, and this way we kind of bridge them with
material. Certainly a big enough topic that I would rather not squeeze it in anywhere, but maybe we'll run a whole podcast on it. There's certainly enough to do a whole program.
Yeah, we could do a week on search and rescue alone, but I think we've covered some of the highlights so far with two episodes. So, but well, that's it. Hey, folks, that's it for this one. For this episode of Old School, we appreciate you again tuning in and listening. Keep spreading that word. If you want us to come out and do a program for you, or you're looking for some information, shoot us an email. I'm at chieflasky@gmail.com. And John?
I am at chiefjohnsalka@gmail.com.
And we always end our shows asking you to please keep the men and women of our armed forces in your thoughts and prayers. And start praying for our law enforcement family as well, the brothers and sisters in blue. They're going through some tough times, as they always do, but even more so right now. So thanks again for tuning in. We always appreciate you. Be careful, and God bless you. Thank you.